Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours? Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 19 of Cool Story with David J. MacNeil. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. This episode features a chat with my good friend and former TVO Kids colleague, Gisele Corinthios. For over 20 years, Gisele has been a fixture on the Canadian public broadcasting landscape as a children's television host, both on the weekday Nook and then eventually as the host of her own eponymously named show, Gisele's Big Backyard, where she helped raise a generation of kids. Today, Gisele is navigating the uncharted waters of being the host of her own YouTube channel called the Gisele Mishmash, where she's entertaining a brand new generation of children. We talked about her many years working in television, as well as all the new opportunities and challenges of finding an audience on the internet. But why don't we just jump into it? Here's my chat with Gisele Corinthios. Hello, Gisele. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to have you on the show. You are the second person who's been on the podcast who was part of the whole TVO Kids phenomenon. The first person who was on the podcast was my first guest, my good buddy Joe Motiki, who you know as well.
Yeah, my good buddy too.
Yes. Nice to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, right now it's all good. I'm just hoping that we don't go into shutdown mode again.
Yeah.
You know? That's always challenging. So, but
especially if you're a parent, right?
great.
I mean, you've got three kids. Did you get to a point where you were having to homeschool your kids and pursue your career?
Yeah. So it's just so funny. Like when I decided to do a YouTube channel. I was considering it for a long time, and I was shooting things with the intention of launching a YouTube channel. And then when COVID hit, that's when I decided to launch it. Everybody was saying this is a good time to start the show. You should launch your show. Kids would benefit from your show. They're at home. Parents need a show like yours. This is the time. And so I launched it, and like everybody else, our kids were at home and doing homeschooling. And so we were in that mode of how we can all work together in the home. And, we got through it, but it was tough. And so right now I feel like we might be going into another one of those shutdowns.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I get. And so I'm trying to prepare for that by shooting a lot of material and to get through the holidays, right? Mm-hmm. Because regardless if there's another shutdown, we're all going to be at home together for a duration of time, and I won't have the same freedom to be able to write content and shoot. So I'm right now in a really big crunch of shooting a lot. So. Mm-hmm.
You've been a children's host and you've worked with children for a long time now. So I'm sure you have a good appreciation of how important teachers are, and good teachers. I know so many people these days that have got kids at home, and during the shutdown they had homeschool. And that's probably been the resounding messages how hard it is to teach.
Yeah. And I think the hardest would be, imagine if you're a parent who's a teacher. I can't even imagine. I have a few friends who are teachers, and they have young kids at home, and they've really struggled, but it's incredible what they've been able to do, right? They've got really tough jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the work that you've been doing. I met you back in, what year was it that you started working on the Nook?
1998.
1998. That's right. So refresh my memory. Basically what happened was Rekha Shah, who had been the host of the Nook for quite a few years, that she decided that she was going to move on to other things, and then they were looking to replace her. Is that how that worked?
No,
it's been a while.
No, that's okay. So there was an afternoon show called The Crawl Space. And then, then on weekends, there was something called The Nook.
Yeah.
And that it was on weekends. So there was the weekend Nook, and then they were looking for a weekday morning preschool host. It was a brand new block, and they were looking for a host producer for the preschool morning block that would air on weekday mornings between the cartoons. There would be these interstitials, and they were looking for a host for that and somebody to produce the content. And so Rekha was on the weekends. It was the Nook, and it was on weekends. And then the preschool morning show block during the weekdays would be called the Weekday Nook.
Right.
And then in the afternoons was the older audience. And that was hosted by Patty and Joe.
Right. The crawl space.
The time in the crawl space. Yeah. And when they were looking for this preschool host producer, TVO had put an ad in the paper for anybody to send in a VHS tape, a 2-minute tape. And then if they liked what they saw, they would then call you in for an audition.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I sent in a 2-minute VHS tape, and then I started getting called into several auditions. And I believe they received, I was told later, 2,000 tapes.
Wow.
For around that. And they watched every single one. Anyway, and then they started to cut down their numbers on who they were interested in. And so I started doing these auditions, and then I learned later on that they were actually going to hire somebody else for the job. And they found that I was just too energetic, I was told. Yeah. That they thought I would suit the afternoon show better, that I was very, I guess, hyper for a preschool show. And I think, they were really looking for somebody calmer. And I'm guessing somebody not with this voice, like somebody sings songy and, very calm. And, a lot of the preschool hosts are like that. And so I could understand if that was the decision, Dave.
Right.
But anyway, so they were going to hire this other person, and it had gone all the way up to the top at TVO. It was approved. And then what happened was the executive producer at that time, Kim Wilson, who anyway, so she had taken these tapes home that night and looked at them again, this other young woman and myself. And then she watched my tape again, and she said that was it. She said her decision just completely changed, and there was no turning back. And she went back the next day. They were actually going to call this other person that day, but then instead, she went right up to the top, and then she got approvals for me.
Wow. That's an interesting story.
I learned that way later on from a couple of my producers at TVO. I guess over time they decided to let me know that, I was lucky. No, I was lucky. But So
what did you, when you sent in your reel, your 2-minute reel on VHS, what was it, something that you just shot on the spot, or was it stuff that you had worked on before? Like, did you have any on-camera experience before you did the show?
No, not at all. Funny. No, I came from a theater background. And that's one of the things that appealed to me most about doing a preschool show, is because you could play these bigger than life characters, and it was just a dream. Yeah, so I had studied theater in Montreal. I was raised in Montreal. And
what school did you go to in Montreal?
So I went to Dawson College, CEGEP, and they have the Dome Theater program there. And so that's where I had studied. And so I hadn't done any television, but I did move to Toronto to be an actor. And I did do auditions. Not a lot. I don't think my agent was pushing me out on as many auditions as she should have, truthfully. But anyway, so at that time, I never had booked TV auditions. And then with this, what happened was, I had to send in, they wanted a VHS tape showing like a 2-minute video to show how, what makes you, why would we hire you, basically? What, show us your talents and how you would connect with kids. And so it's kind of funny, because at the time, when this ad was put in the paper, I was in France. I was there visiting my dad, who's a prof, and he was teaching at the University of Nice. So he was there. And so I was there for several weeks. And my boyfriend at the time had told me about this ad in the paper. And then my boyfriend was coming over to France to see me, to stay with me while we were there with my dad. And so we had borrowed camera, one of these, the PAL, the PAL version of these big video cameras.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we borrowed it from an old friend of mine because I lived in France for a year when I was a kid. And so this old friend of mine lent us this camera. And then we were trying to shoot this audition. And it's funny because I remember the first kid that I spoke to, I heard it, somebody speaking English because I wanted it to be in English. Now, of course, I'm in France, right? So we were in Cannes, and then in this, a lot of tourists in the area that we were in, and I heard this child speaking English, a 3-year-old girl. And so I went up to the parents and I asked, can I, ask a few questions to your daughter before this audition that I have? And I started speaking to the little girl and she started wailing. Like she just started
work with me, kid.
Bawling her eyes out. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to be sending in. So then, we tried several things. We were spending like a day just trying different ideas. And then I remembered that when I lived in France as a kid, I used to draw on rocks at the beach. My dad would always take, these rocks and turn them into these shapes, like into these pieces of art. Like if he found a rock, he might color it with a pen and turn it into somebody's face, like a whole head of a whatever, made out of rock. And so we were sitting on this rocky beach in Nice, and then I thought, oh, why don't I just color on rocks? And so that's what I started doing, is coloring these little rock faces. And the funny thing is, it was like late in the day. It was at the end of the day, maybe around 5:00. Nobody's really on the beach when we're shooting this. And then there was a little playground nearby, like at a private beach. And so there was like a little playground set up. And these little kids were so interested. I was not far away. They were going to be in the background. Yeah. And they came over. And then they wanted to see what I was doing. And so they got really involved in coloring with me. And then, so that became my audition piece, as I was sitting with these kids and I was coloring on rocks. What I learned later, it wasn't so much what I was doing. They just wanted to see your delivery to the camera, how you spoke to the camera, what's your personality like? And I was told that, that's what won them over in the end, was my personality.
Yeah.
And my lovely voice. Yeah. Just kidding.
Do you not like your voice?
Oh my gosh. Do I not like it? Well, you know what? No, I don't like my voice.
Yeah, but it's been part of what's taking you along this journey, right?
Yeah. So I appreciate it now. It's just funny, It's just funny because, I've never liked my voice. And then, but I guess it works, so it's fine. And I'm learning that, that my voice is such a huge part of me that, my voice gets recognized. I can't even understand it because I don't know if I hear it the same way as other people hear it. But anyway, I'm learning that, that it's so distinctive, I guess, that people.
Well, it's your part of your brand, right?
Yeah. It's funny.
We use that term a lot these days, brand, but it's part of your personality, your persona, and what's taking you this far as an entertainer. Let me ask you more about that. Belinda, my wife, she sent out a questionnaire to some friends and family members the other day, based on something that she had read, trying to find out from people, how did they view her? We all have an idea of how we are viewed, but we don't really have an idea as to how other people view us unless we ask them or unless they offer it. And so she sent out a note to some friends and family members and said, can you tell me what you think my secret sauce is? So you've been working for what, about 20 years in the business and TV as an entertainer of children. And do you know what your secret sauce is? Do you know what it is that makes you, an enjoyable person to watch on TV for kids?
Some people do tell me things, so I don't know. So I'm going to go with what other people have told me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also what I feel. It's like I've been told that, I'm very genuine and that you could feel that I love the kids. And so I'd say that is huge, right? That's why I continue to do it, because I just love it. I love feeling connected to the kids. I think also, I show them that it's okay not to be perfect. just the other day, I had aired something where, I'm carrying fruit and I keep dropping the fruit. It was an accident, but I'm just like, oh, sorry, little banana or whatever. So I'd say there's that. And like my voice, I guess, also shows them that I'm not perfect, I guess, right? Like when it comes to singing, when I was in theater school, I had to sing in front of the class and I just couldn't do it for the longest time. Finally, when I sang in front of my class, my knees were knocking and I couldn't believe it. My knees were actually, you hear about knocking knees, but they were physically knocking. I could feel them knocking. And so that's how much singing intimidates me. And then lo and behold, over time, having done TVO Kids for so many years, I've only received positivity about my singing. Not that it sounds pretty, but that it's fun, that I'm having fun. And that's what I want to show kids. It's like, just have fun. Don't be perfect, right?
Yeah. Well, I've watched, I was watching some of your videos, both some of the stuff that you've been doing for Gisele Mishmash, your YouTube show that you launched not long ago. And then a lot of the videos that you, that are on YouTube that you can check out, the work that you had done before on Gisele's Big Backyard. And those music videos and those performances are great. They're fun. And you know what the thing is too about that? I remember doing this in an acting class where I had to sing a medley from Ewan McGregor's medley from Moulin Rouge.
Oh, right? Yeah.
It's got a Queen song in there. There's just all these iconic songs. And you just sing and dance and do this medley. And I was so intimidated. But when I did it, like if you go for it, people just appreciate watching people who go for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you don't have to be pitch perfect. But people are the average person is so, a lot of people are fearful of public presentations, and even performers are. I think that's something that people don't realize, that even people who work on camera are often fearful of interviews and public, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But audiences appreciate it when you go for it, right?
Right.
Right. And they see that. And you don't have to have the best voice in the world, but if you go for it and you put all that energy in there and you just grab it and go for it, audiences see that and they respond, I think. Yeah,
I think so too. Oh, definitely kids do, right?
For sure. Yeah, because kids aren't judgy.
Yeah, that's why it's the perfect audience, right?
Talking about secret sauce, here's one thing I noticed about you, and it was from the get-go when I met you, and that is that, like, we could be in a conversation, myself, the two of us, or with other people or whatever, and somebody will bring something up and you will be genuinely, wow, that's like excited and engaged and stuff like that in a way that maybe some other people aren't. Like, I think you have a bit of a childlike wonder about you.
Interesting.
Right? I always feel like your reactions are bigger than most people's reactions, which is definitely a good attribute to have if you're going to be a presenter in any case on television, but especially if you're dealing with kids.
With a young audience, right? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I guess I do. I know I ask a lot of questions. I'm very interested in people. And, it's funny. I get very nervous for interviews. So far, this is fine. But because I sometimes, like, I'm doing it right now. I have so much to say and I do get very excited. And I feel like I sometimes just have to take it down a notch so that I can be more relatable. It's so crazy. So I'm happy to hear you see it in a really positive way. You just turn that around and I like it, Dave.
Well, yeah, like I said before, I mean, if what you were doing wasn't working, we wouldn't be talking about, a 20-year plus career, and you're just getting going on your new project. You started at TVO Kids. You worked on the first show, which was the weekday Nook, and then at some point they decided to switch gears and turn it into Gisele's Big Backyard. And then that became, well, when your name is attached to it, that's a pretty big deal, right?
That's why I went with the Gisele Mishmash later. I thought I should just keep my name in there.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
But when you made that transition to being, the host of the Nook, to essentially having your own show and it being branded with your name in it, and you could tell too, then they really put more money into it and all that, and virtual sets and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. Which brings me to some questions about that era. A little bit later, we'll get to talking about what you're doing now with the new show, Gisele Mishmash. But Gisele's Big Backyard, I was looking at some video the other day. The cool thing about working for a broadcaster is that you have a lot of people working with you, which is the difference, between creating your own show and then everything's up to you. But you work in a team and they come up with an idea, and then you spitball stuff, and you're like, oh, in this episode we're going to have. I was talking to my friend Maureen, who is a producer. She was in the last podcast, and she was talking about working on Big Brother Canada. And she got hired to do the challenges. If you watch Big Brother, they have all those challenges like they have on Survivor. And so she'd come up with these ideas. And one was like, I like the idea of coming up with, all the people who lived in the Big Brother house dressed as bees. So we put them in giant bee costumes. It's fun to talk about that and then work on a team where you get creative people who go away and they come back with the costumes and the sets and the props. And you're just like, wow, like this thing that I'm going to do today that I wrote is really going to pop because now, we've got all these really other cool, talented people working on it. And so, that's a pretty neat thing. And then on top of that too, they're like, well, we're going to go out and get guests come in and be on your show. And whether it's musicians or whether it's other educators or whatever. So I was watching your videos the other day and I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing. I came across a video of you with the Strumbellas, who I've seen in concert many times and I think are fantastic. So I was like, that's so cool. But that's part of the great thing about having a show like this is you get to have guests.
Yeah.
And so who are some of the people that you got to work with over the years that you really enjoyed and appreciated?
Yeah, the Strumbellas were amazing because how cool is it to have live music right there in your studio and have them play? And they were a lot of fun. They were great energy and just really nice people. And another great one that comes to mind is the Wiggles.
Yeah.
They came on in their early days when they were just starting off, and TVO was the first broadcaster in North America to air their show. So it was a very big deal to have them with us. And what was cool about that is that I actually shot a music video with them. So even made it more awesome. And we worked together several times. We did a stage show. I worked with them on a stage show, and also we did other stuff in the Nook together. Another really cool guest was David Suzuki. I found it very intimidating to be around him, but that was really cool just to have David Suzuki on there. There was Steve from Blues Clues, Sarah Harmer. Nice. Yeah, there were some great guests that we had on TVO Kids. Yeah.
And so is that something that you're going to be doing with Gisele Mishmash? Is have people come by your house and guest star on the set in your house?
Would love to have guests come here post-COVID.
There's that.
Right? Yeah. So far, I've only interviewed a few kids. I've had a few kids, outside in the summer. I've done a few interviews, but I absolutely would love to have guests with me. A few musicians have asked if they can perform on my show, and that would be really cool. It's a very small set, but I feel like we can do it in the Gisele Mishmash because the Nook back in those early days,
it was tiny.
It was tiny. Yeah. And also to go back to what you were saying before, you were saying about having a big crew of people who do all the, who help to produce the show, a big team, right? And, well, our team was always very small. We were always, I think, 4 to 5 people max. 5, I'd say were max in our team. And back in the very early days of the Nook, it was very much like YouTube because we actually made our own props. Myself and Marie McCann, who is the director producer of the show. So we actually, it was just the two of us, and we were finding our own props. These are very early days before it was unionized, right? Yeah. And so when we needed props, I would bring often, if I needed a stuffed animal, I'd bring it from home. Right, yeah. I remember actually I once had this little elephant that I brought from home, and then I got a letter from a viewer, and they asked me where I got the elephant from, which was my own personal elephant. And they said, because their son, I still have this letter, and they said their son had the same elephant and that he lost it. They weren't accusing me of taking it, don't worry. So they wanted to replace it because it was so meaningful to him. When a child loses their little stuffed animal, it's like their best friend, right? So they asked me where they can purchase one if I had any idea. And I thought, well, this is my own stuffed animal. Anyway, so I sent him my elephant. They were over the moon. They sent me a check. Of course, I didn't cash it. But it's funny. Back in those days, we would provide a lot of our own props. If I needed a rainbow, I would color, the rainbow, and we'd make our own props. So, and I did my own hair back then. I did my own makeup. So Marie McCann, who was my director producer, we laugh about this when I told her I was going to have a YouTube channel. We have a good laugh because like, whoa, this is bringing back to the Nook, because it really was like YouTube in many ways. So
sure it was, yeah.
So in that sense, this is familiar to me in some ways, but there were other team members, of course, whereas this is, and I still, I'm alone for most of the time, but I do have an educational consultant, Stacy Golden, and she overlooks a lot of the material that I do.
Yeah.
And also, this is where I'm talking about with the Gisele Mishmash. So I do have somebody to proofread what I have and give me suggestions on how to make sure that it's good. And then also Julie Patterson Porter, and she is another good friend of mine. These two women, they're amazing. They want to be on the journey with me. They, they have a strong passion for kids entertainment, like I do, edutainment, I should say. Anyway, and so then Julie Patterson Porter, she also directs a lot of my segments as well. So I do have somewhat a bit of a team. When it comes down to it, am I the one who's putting it all together, producing it, writing it? Yeah. But it's great to feel a bit of a team there as well with me, right? Like I can't imagine not having that.
Yeah.
It does feel like a lot to be doing this with my 3 children and at home. But I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about how that all happened. So you did the Nook, and then you did Gisele's Big Backyard, which you won a Gemini for too, right? The show won a Gemini, and you were nominated for a bunch as well.
Yeah,
we had
a lot of nominations, and we have the one Gemini, which is great.
Which is amazing.
We were also nominated for the ACT Awards, which are the YMA Awards, the Youth Media Alliance Awards. So. So we had a lot of nominations. Our show, it was very successful, I'd say. Yeah.
So you did 18 seasons of Gisele's Big Backyard?
18 years.
18 years.
And then it aired for 20 years. And went on to air for 20 years. So it aired after it stopped production, and it stopped production in 2016. And it continued to air, which fascinates me. Last year, TVO Kids celebrated the 25th anniversary. When I think that, wow, our show aired for 20 out of those 25 years, that's pretty mind-blowing and unheard of in Canadian television.
Absolutely. 20 years.
Right?
20 years. A show is just, it's just about unheard of. So you did 18 years of Gisele's Big Backyard. That's a long run for a show. The show wraps. And then, so how did you find yourself doing the Gisele Mishmash? Was it something you knew you should do? Or did you kind of figure, maybe I'll do something completely different? And after a while you started thinking about it, maybe I should do my own thing, or what? How did that happen?
Honestly, I never, ever thought I'd be doing YouTube. I just didn't. And when I would see my children watching, I thought there was so much nonsense on YouTube. Now and then they'd watch something educational and, and healthy for the mind. Yeah. But I also thought, wow, there's just so much nonsense. Like the ones that were healthy for the mind, I found those to be, produced shows, like complete with a production company. And those were all great and healthy. Sure. But then, the YouTubers, which cracks me up as a YouTuber, because I guess that's what I am now. But anyway, so the YouTubers, I just found that there was so much nonsense on there. Now, what happened was, after I left TVO Kids, when the show stopped production, I was putting my hands in several pots trying to figure out, what do I want to do now, right? And And then, so I had created a different show, a show that I started pitching to our children's media industry, so to broadcasters and production companies. So in that process of me pitching this show, I had pitched it to one production company, it fell through. I pitched it to a second production company, and this is going on over time. This is like a 2-year process, okay? So the second production company, when that fell through, my writing agent and I were saying, well, maybe this is something, we should start considering production companies for online media. So I thought online, and I thought YouTube? Which I never watched. Like I said, I only saw my children, what they were watching, right? And so I started to look into YouTube. I started researching, well, what kind of preschool shows, because there was a preschool show that I was pitching to these production companies. So I was online and I was researching what kind of preschool shows are on YouTube. Let me really get into this. So while I was in there, I thought, you know what? I'm going to look myself up. Like, what, TVO, what about myself? Which is so funny because I never research myself. I don't know, it's just never really crossed my mind. I have Googled now and then. I have, but I didn't go into YouTube and look at myself. I didn't even know if I knew there was some stuff up there because I remember that while I was at TVO, they started to put stuff online, but I didn't know what was on there, how much was on there. I didn't know what the viewership was like. I don't know. Anyway, so I go in and then I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the views. One video, it was so funny to me. It was like a compilation video. I was doing the same thing over and over, but like a different letter of the alphabet. It was the letter of the alphabet. Anyway, I was watching this one video and that had, 1.1 million views.
Wow.
And so I saw that. I remember thinking, oh, wow, those are a lot of views. I think that's a lot. According to my kids, those were a lot of views. And then, other ones had a huge amount of views as well. Anyway, so it caught my attention that YouTube, that there are people watching. And I thought, who's watching this? Who's watching Gisele's Big Backyard now? Like, it's not in production. Is this all so new to me? Because I was just not an online kind of person.
Yeah.
So then from there, at the same time, I was receiving messages from parents on LinkedIn because I was on LinkedIn. And so parents were telling me their kids miss me on TVO.
Well, that's nice,
and
isn't it?
it was amazing. And then people were saying that they watch me on YouTube. Yeah. So this was all happening at the same time. And I was like watching me on YouTube. And then I remember the views. And so then I'd go back into YouTube. And then I thought, wow, there's something here. People want to see me on there. Yeah. And so, that happened. And then, and the funny thing too, back to the show that I had produced and had created and pitched to production companies, right at the same time, a production company had called me or emailed me and they said, we want that show. So that right there, I have done the pitching a preschool show, the regular broadcast route. And that is with a production company, that show. Yeah. Okay. So there's that. But that's been, since the beginning. It was a long process. It's been like a few years now, right?
Pitching shows, it's a hard thing to do.
Yes.
I've done it. It's hard.
and everybody says very long, extremely long process. So, that was going on at the time. It's still going now. And then when all this YouTube was coming at me, I thought, wow, this is awesome. I have this show going the broadcast route. It's been a long time. And then there's this platform sitting right in front of me and I could get on there and I could make a show. And I don't have to ask anybody permission. I don't need approvals. I can just go for it and do it. And so that's exactly what happened. It was like this epiphany. And as soon as I made that decision, it was boom, I'm making a YouTube channel. Yeah. I said, and by the way, my children were saying to me for a couple of years prior, you should have a YouTube channel. Other people have said it to me. My husband has said it to me. My best friends have said it to me. You should have a YouTube channel. And then, but when it hit, it needed to come from me, I guess. Right. And so when I made the decision, I just hit the ground running and it was like nonstop. I wrote a list out, this never ending list on what I had to do to have a YouTube channel. And at first I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to feel this out. Maybe this is something in due time, I will come around to, but let me just start putting little things into place that I am prepared for when this really feels ready to launch it. But ideas were just flowing out of me. And that surprised me too, because I was on TV for 18 years producing ideas. And then I don't know, I couldn't believe it. I had ideas. I'm like, oh, I want to do this character. I want to do that. And so it just all felt right. And it was just such an incredible feeling when you feel like, this epiphany happened, and then you feel that this is what you want to do, and you're just so passionate about it. And that's where I am, and I feel that way.
Well, that's pretty exciting, because I know that when you, and this probably happens to you now, when you work with a team and you've got bosses and you've got people that have to sign off on everything, sometimes you come up with ideas and you're like, I can't present that to the group because I know them and they will poo-poo that, or it won't be their thing or whatever. And now you're like, well, I think it's a great idea. Now it just gets to be on air right away. And there's no second guessing like, oh, well, I know that won't fly with my team or the higher ups or whatever. You're like, it's my idea. Now I just get to go for it. And it sinks or swims based on what the kids think of it, which is the most important thing, I guess, which is the beauty of doing it your own channel. Exactly.
Right? I go straight to my audience. Yeah. I mean, it's a big challenge in finding your audience on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. Like for your channel to grow and really find your audience. But the ones that are watching, they can decide, right? Do they want to continue to watch? What do the parents think? Like, are they going to still have their children watch? But you're going directly to them. It's just amazing to have that direct access to your audience. I find it incredible. And, with these music videos, I had mentioned them earlier, I come up with an idea for a music video, and then I write the lyrics. I have a music library, and so I write the lyrics, I write the music, and then boom. Okay, I call up Julie. Are you available to shoot a music video? Sure. It's funny because I've recorded the songs, at a kitchen table with a broken mic, and it's very shoddy, but it gets done. Yeah. And then, hey, Julie, are you available to go and shoot a music video, at the park or whatever? Anyway, and then she's available, and then we just get it done. I mean, immediate. And she's like me. It's like she hits the ground running. The first music video that I had produced was just this September. It was about going back to school during COVID and how to be safe at school. Yeah. And so I came up with that idea on a Thursday. I wrote it on Friday morning within a couple of hours. And then on Sunday, we were up at the break of dawn, and we shot it for about 6 hours on Sunday. And then it got edited. It was about maybe, I don't know, like a week later. Yeah. And then it aired. I mean, It was so quick. And this continually happens. I have 2 other music videos now, and it's just like, they're just boom, boom. And in the regular broadcast industry, it just doesn't happen that fast.
No, it could take a month to come up with an idea and to
yes.
and getting to air.
And approvals, like, and then you got to book your team. And then it's just a longer process, right? But of course, there are things about it that make it's very YouTube, right? It's like there's something very organic about it, right? Like I'm recording it on a broken mic. It's not mixed properly, but it works, right? It happens and it works, and it's fun, and the kids enjoy it, and that's the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah. So for people who haven't seen the Gisele Mishmash channel and see what you do, break it down and tell people what it is that the show offers viewers.
It offers a nice, safe, comforting, I think there's a little bit of hint to the classic television where it's just a warm, loving world that is funny. There are fun characters that are there to entertain and make you laugh while they're educating you on YouTube. Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean by that. It's kind of, it does have a very sort of old school sort of children's entertainment television feel to it that people watching it who are adults would be like, oh, I get that. And the kids get it because if it's fun, it's fun.
Yeah. And I wanted that. It was like, the reason I called it the Gisele Mishmash is because it's a mishmash of different characters. I watched the Carol Burnett show and just how she plays different characters.
Yeah.
And I like the name of it, the Carol Burnett show. So I was like, oh, the Gisele Mishmash, right? So when I was coming up with the music for the intro music, I had listened to both Zoom and Electric Company. Those were some of the songs that I liked.
You're gonna zoom, 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 zoom. We're gonna zoom, zoom, zoom.
Yeah. So I was looking at those classic shows and their music and playing the characters. That's it. You got it. You get it.
Yeah, exactly. So you wanted to incorporate all that stuff into your show. Sort of harken to the past, but still be a YouTube presenter and you know.
Yeah. And I mean, I was inspired by a lot of things, like even my set, you know, I was inspired by, at first it was Paddington Bear, the movie, you know, the recent movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but anyway, a few years ago, I saw it and I was just amazed. I thought it was the most loving, warm, comforting home. And I wanted that feel for my show. Yeah. And mind you, Paddington Bear that movie has a lot of very rich, dark colors and a lot of reds in it. And I felt that I wanted mine to be brighter because I thought I would have lighting challenges if I went very dark. So it's brighter, but I just wanted that warm, comforting feel for kids to, you know, feel very welcome to.
And so do you get a lot of direct feedback from kids through the channel?
Well, it's interesting with a kids channel on YouTube because the comments are turned off, right? So the feedback that I get is through social media because now I'm doing social media. And I have a website, so I get feedback from there too. And that's what keeps me going, really, is the feedback from kids. It helps you keep you going. I mean, I love doing this. You know, it is a very big challenge because of the viewership. Like I'm not yet monetized on my channel. Yeah. You know, that's a journey. And so there are days that I think, wow, this is a lot, right? I mean, thankfully I have a very supportive husband for me to do this. But it's a challenge. So the kids' feedback, the parents' feedback, that's what really helps to drive me. Those are the rewards I get, right? I just take them all in. And that's the rewards right now, which is so great, right? When you're receiving positive feedback and it keeps you going.
You came up with the concept. You put the show together. It's been on the air for a while now. And now the big thing is just growing your audience. And so what have you learned about that? How do you grow your audience? I don't know. Is there, you know, so many ways to do it? I mean, this is the thing with the podcast. I don't know. How do you grow the audience? I just figure I just keep doing it. If I'm interested, I think there'll be other people out there who are likewise interested in what I'm talking about. And I hope that those people kind of gravitate. How do you kind of keep this thing moving and grow your audience? I mean, that's the tough part of this, right?
It's that I feel that I do receive feedback from, you know, some audience, right? Yeah. There are children that are watching. You could see that there's still views. If there's an audience that keeps coming back to you, people are watching. And then also I'm receiving feedback through my website or through social media. There has to be other people out there like them, right? Yes. That's what I feel. I feel so, you know, I'm going to give it my best shot. And, but there was a lot to learn with YouTube. In the beginning, I had launched it so quickly because of, you know, people pushing me and saying, you know, we're in lockdown. This is the time to launch it. And I didn't fully have a grasp on search engine optimization, which is the keywords that you put into
SEO. It's boring.
Exactly.
And it's not fun. You know,
right. So that out. So in the beginning, for a long time, I just never had the time to go there to figure all that out. I had an idea, but I didn't go back through all my notes on everything that I had learned. I watched a lot of YouTube channels to receive all this information on how do you go about SEO. And after I launched it, there came a time that I finally have started to slowly chip away at figuring out how to make changes to be more searchable for people. Yeah. So I'm getting a much better grasp on it, but there's that, having the hope that people are watching. So hopefully more people will watch. I am definitely lucky that I've raised now a couple of generations of children, haven't been on TVO.
Yeah.
So there are parents who are thrilled to have their children watch me. They tell me that they're just so happy that their kids can have can experience a bit of what they had in their childhood for entertainment, edutainment.
And the other thing that helps is that not for nothing, I mean, you were on TV for 18 years doing your show. You were piped into homes all over Ontario. The beauty of TVO has always been that it, pretty much everybody could get it. You could get it in a remote area in Ontario on rabbit ears, right?
Yeah.
So many people watched you. So now that you're doing the Gisele Mishmash, also there's people have an awareness of who you are, and you've been getting calls to do like news pieces and stuff like that and do some press for it. So that's pretty cool. So talk about some of the press that you've done for the show and when you do press, do you see a spike in the numbers?
Yeah, that has helped for sure. But do I see a spike? I'd say slight.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you, it's been slight. I can't say that it's anything, really shocking. You know what? It's so hard. A lot of people ask me this, how's it going? How's the show going? To tell you the truth, I mean, I don't really know because I'm so new to it, and it's really hard to compare it to anybody because, I just started it. And what I'm told is that this is really a journey of being very patient.
Yeah.
And you got to stick with it, and you have to be consistent, and you have to upload your weekly video. Like, you have to just stay on the path and don't look back and don't look forward. Just be in it, stay present, do what you have to do. So my subscribers have gone up with the more videos that I've launched, which is great. So they do go up. Sometimes you lose subscribers too. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. I can't tell you.
I understand what you're saying. I think it's very similar to the podcast experience, and it's slow and steady wins the race. Is you just gotta put your head down and keep producing stuff that you think your audience is going to enjoy. And if you're right about it, they will respond, and they will grow, and the audience will grow, and they'll tell friends. And then, that's kind of how it works. I remember seeing an interview not long ago with Joe Rogan, who's got probably one of the most watched or listened to podcasts in the world right now. And he says he doesn't look at numbers at all. He was talking to Miley Cyrus about that, and she was talking about that she doesn't really follow or look herself up in the internet to see what critiques she's getting and stuff. She just does it. And he was saying he does the same thing. He doesn't care about any of that. He's just like, I just keep doing the thing I want to do, and I just keep moving forward, and I feel like I organically get the audience or whatever, and it grows. But he goes, I don't find it helpful to be like looking into it. And especially too, like for those people, it's different to be, a Miley Cyrus and a Joe Rogan and stuff, because you get adults who really are critical of you and stuff. I don't think, you're not going to get adults and stuff being critical with you on social media. You've got a different sort of thing going, but it's true. You just got to keep on your game.
Yeah. And, even when I was at TVO, I really feel like what you're saying, that's why I never looked at myself up on YouTube, right? Yep. I Googled now and then, I don't remember why. There was always a reason. I think there was a reason I was looking myself up, but anyway, like I look at, I was told to go on IMDb and put all of your information on IMDb. And then, so I was struggling with that because people had already inputted information, and some of it was wrong, and I wanted to correct it, some of the years and the dates. And so it was a big mess. So then I was Googling, trying to find out information about myself. Yeah. But it's not often that I would look myself up because I just was in the path. I was in it. I was doing what I was loving. And now with the YouTube channel, I do look now and then. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's not daily. I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep going with it and then seeing what happens, right? Like what you're saying, like you just, like Joe Rogan said, you just keep doing it if you love it. And what's really cool from doing this channel, one of the really amazing things that have happened is that I've had other opportunities come at me. There was, a bit of media came to want to do some interviews, but also there have been a few other jobs that have come my way. Yeah, which is very cool. So that goes to show that there are people watching. Mm-hmm. And also it's great because it's opened doors, and I'm excited to see where things are going to go. Because sometimes like there's one opportunity that I have that I'm very interested in. This is something that I'm exploring. It never would have come about if it wasn't for my YouTube channel.
Right.
So, right. So I'm loving that as well. The fact that it's being well received, right? And it feels right to be doing it. So I just keep going with it.
The other thing that's interesting about this too is, and I don't know if you've experienced this yet, is I find that because you're working on a grassroots level and everybody realizes how difficult it is to, put yourself out there and create your own product and get it out there to the masses, that people are willing to help each other out. And I often get, like, I've done, I think 2 or 3 other podcasts now talking to me about my podcast. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
Because people are promoting each other and helping each other out, and realize that, like, that's kind of, how you get ahead when you work on a project that survives at a grassroots level like this, is that people kind of help each other out. So that's one thing I've discovered, is that you get other people that are like, yeah, let's do a chat. Let's help each other. Let's raise our own our profiles through this,
Yeah. It's so true. It's a whole other beast, isn't it? I mean, this whole online, like, podcasts, YouTube, and all these collaborations, right? What you're talking about.
What we're doing right now.
Yeah. You're right. We are. Yeah. And it's amazing. All that is just amazing. Artists helping artists. Like, how cool is that? Right.
Yeah. It's a brave new world. And it's so funny because people were talking to me about this. I had a buddy years ago. I pitched a couple shows, and I had one buddy who's like, why don't you do it on YouTube? And why don't you do it online and whatever? But but coming up in a broadcast TV model back in the day, I was just like, YouTube, when am I going to do that? Like, until other people turned YouTube into a big thing, till other visionaries, came along and became big on YouTube and stuff. I hate to say it, but I was like, I've always said, like, I'm a late bloomer in a lot of ways, and I didn't see podcasts and YouTube in the early days as what they've become, right? I just kind of scoffed and said, that's just not the way to go. It's impossible to monetize. All of a sudden, you see all kinds of people monetizing this, if that's important to you, or getting, their profiles raised from doing it. But I didn't see that in the early days. I wasn't clicked in like that. I didn't get it. But I had people telling me, well, that show you're pitching, that model of TV is dying. Why don't you do it this way? And I was like, yeah, no. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I don't see any positives there. But I had the exact same thinking as you. And that's why I really never, ever thought I would be doing YouTube. Yeah. And here you are. So what do you want to do with the show? What's on your wish list? What are you hoping to do? Well, one of the big things is that, you were mentioning about getting monetized. I hope that I could have enough viewers for somehow that can happen, because it costs me to make the show. Mm-hmm. So to continue on and on, to keep doing it, you need to receive income. Like, it does cost. There are costs tied to it. Not everybody realizes that. You could do it in a way, some things for sure that are, that you just get on and, there's no lights or, music and no edits, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if those people are all, getting monetized or not. But anyway, my show, the way it's designed, it costs. And so over time, I really hope that I could get to a point that it is monetized, so I just can keep doing it. Right. Yeah. Like, right now, it's all good. I can do it, and I love doing it. I hope to continue to produce my show. Yeah. Well, that's a tricky thing too, right? About monetizing something and being able to pay to produce it and hopefully get, an income from it for all the work that you put into it. Is that with a kid's show, it's not like other YouTube channels where you can just come along and it's all of a sudden you do product placement or whatever. I mean, it gets tricky with kids, because over the years the broadcasters even, they put in places laws so that TV shows weren't constantly blasting kids with products that they should go bug their parents about and stuff. Right. It's not quite like doing a show for an adults where you can do product placement for all kinds of products, right, and sometimes really useless and lame products. Right. You can't really do that with kids. You're entrusted to take it seriously and to work with the kids and not use them as a marketing opportunity. So it's tricky when you're doing a show like yours, right?
It's funny. I haven't thought about it like that really. But, I don't do product placements. I wouldn't say I do that. I have to use products for my show.
Yeah.
But how they're used is they're always in an educational way. So I often say this, I have, I have blue paint, use whatever color that you like, if it doesn't matter if somebody has one tube of paint, I say, use crayons,
Yeah.
So I'm not selling the paint product, but I'm trying to say, I'm trying to be open about it. And I try to encourage arts and crafts where people actually have the stuff in their home, or that it's accessible. I try to, but yeah, I'm not out there to go and sell the product. I'm selling the creativity and the craft,
Right. Yes. It's not like the old days where you can be like, hey, I'm enjoying this amazing breakfast. By the way, I'm eating Sugar Crisps by Post.
No. No.
Why don't you talk to your mom and dad about picking up some Sugar Crisps?
Right. Right.
So now you're working on the Gisele Mishmash. You did the other show for 18 years. This is a conversation I had with Joe Moticki about being visible, especially on TVO and a place where, it gets beamed in everybody's home. Have you had a lot of experiences, weird experiences or fun experiences where you've been out with your husband or your kids or on your own or whatever, run into people, watch a show and had kind of odd reactions with people or what's that like, being out in the public and running into people who watch the show?
There's been so many funny situations. Like somebody just recently reminded me the other day about how once a dad was so excited to meet me that he put his baby in my arms and he said, I just want to go get my camera from my wife. And so he took off and the I'm just holding this baby. This is pre-kids for me. This is a while ago, years ago. And he left me with his child. And he took off. It was so funny. And my friend and I were just stunned that I was holding this baby. Where'd this guy go? And then more recently, I was shooting for the Gisele Mishmash, my YouTube channel. And then I was dressed as my character Grub, who is a prehistoric human character. Yeah. And so I have, a blackened tooth and I've got dirt all over my face. And anyway,
a loincloth outfit too. And
yeah. Anyway, I was going to go and shoot with Julie, who, as I had mentioned, she directs now and then the show. And so we were going to go and shoot this outdoors somewhere. And then I realized when I was driving to her place that, oh no, I had forgotten some of the props. I totally forgot I needed some props. So I stopped at the dollar store. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I just have to stop at the dollar store. But then when I got there, I'm like, oh, I'm dressed as Grub. My tooth is blackened out. I have dirt in my face. My eyebrows are colored big and bushy. I mean, this character ain't pretty. Okay. And so I thought, okay, I have my mask. It's COVID time. I have my mask. I'm going to put on my mask.
Now you're just a caveman with a mask.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I have my jacket on. Anyway, so I put my jacket on. I have the mask on. So I have bangs. So my bangs are covering up my bushy eyebrows and I go for it. I go inside and then I get to the cash. And I asked a question about something I was paying for. And I had my head down. I wasn't looking at the woman. And then, so I asked a question and she said, are you Gisele from Gisele's Big Backyard? I couldn't believe it. She recognized me because of my voice, Dave. The voice. While I was dressed like this, I was covered up. I had a hood on, my mask, the bangs, and she still recognized my voice. It was so funny.
Yeah, there you go. That's part of your brand. One of the things that you probably have experienced yourself is something that came up when I was talking to Joe Moticki about his experience over the years working on TVO Kids Crawl Space and other shows that he's hosted, but particularly working on TVO Kids because, once again, a show that got beamed in everybody's living room in Ontario. And he was telling me, we talked about what it's like to run into people today who talk about, oh, I grew up on your show, or I watched your show when I was 5 or, and now I'm a parent or, you've worked in the business long enough to to experience that as well. Do you have any stories about, sort of running into folks who had that kind of a scenario?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And especially now that I'm on social media, I receive a lot of that, which is, it's kind of fascinating. Yeah, so that does happen often, especially now that I'm on social media. On my Instagram, I'm amazed to how many kids, they're adults now. A lot of them are young adults, I would say. There's so many different ages because I was doing this show for 20 years. So sometimes it's an adult, it's a grandparent who used to watch back in the day, a teacher, it's new kids, like little children, of course. There's so many different ages. And sometimes you think, like if it's like a young, 20-something-year-old guy, and it's funny, on Instagram, I see their Instagrams, and sometimes, they're just so, I don't even know how to say it, cool, I guess. Cool. And then they'll send me a message, and it's the sweetest, most warmest message. And they share with me on how much it meant to them to watch me on TV, to be with me back in the day when they were kids. And it's so funny, like sometimes they can have a tough exterior and they're teddy bears, everybody has that it gives them that nostalgic feeling when you're a children's entertainer. So it's really sweet. You get so much positivity in that. And then also, a while ago, I was shooting for the Gisele Mishmash, and I was shooting at somebody's house, outside of their house, with their book box, one of those library boxes.
Yeah.
I do this segment called Alpha Book Box.
Yeah,
and
I've seen that.
Anyway, so I had asked this person who owns this home and this book box, if I can shoot there. So I was shooting there with Julie, and then this woman who was doing some gardening work at this house, she came outside. She was beside herself in tears. She was way taller than me, like 6 feet or something.
Yeah.
In tears. She told me she was 25 years old, and she was just, so excited to meet me, but she had tears coming down her face. It was just so beautiful, So there's so much, being a children's entertainer, you receive so much warmth and positivity and respect. It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a minute. I mean, I had the experience of having done some breaks on the crawl space back in the day, and we would do a funny little bit, and then a week later, we'd be opening the mail, and like a couple times I wrote some bits for TVO Kids, the crawl space, and then appeared as a character, and then we'd get the mail, and every once in a while somebody would draw, like it looked like a frame. From a sketch with all the characters, and they drew me, and they drew Joe, and they drew Patty, and they drew the whole scenario and put bubbles and what we were saying. And you're like, wow, these kids they're really zoned in, and they're really paying attention. And and this is this is back in in 98, right? And so,
I remember when you were on there.
People aren't watching it on a loop or watching it over and over on YouTube. They watch it once.
Yes.
And then they remember everything, and then just photographic memory. They recreate what we just did, mail it in, and you get it, and you're like, wow, that's when you realize that you're connecting.
Yes.
And
especially that there's something to be said about taking out a piece of paper, go and get your crayons, and drawing the picture, and then finding an envelope and asking your parent to help you write the address, and then getting the stamp, and then going to the mail. To the mailbox. So that's huge, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's a lot more investment than a comment on a YouTube page, right? I mean, that's your audience is full in. And then when you see that you're getting hundreds of pieces like that a week from kids, or thousands or whatever that they're sending in their artwork and stuff, it's pretty amazing. That you've made your mark, and that you've resonated.
With the Gisele Mishmash, I actually ask for drawings to be sent in to the website by taking a picture of it, and then I print out the picture, and then I present it on the show. So it's a different way of doing it. But when I do receive a drawing, even that step that a child has asked their parent, and the parent took the time to go and take the picture and go on the website and upload it, feels so rewarding. Somebody's taken the time to do this, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I mean, and you're continuing on in that tradition, but that just you see that and you realize how much you've meant for kids, right? When you look back, do you get a sense of, or do you not like to think
It's
that
funny.
way, or?
Uh, no, I mean, I do from I hear the feedback, but to this day, it's weird. It's like it's surreal. Like it feels some of the things that people say to me are so loving and so just filled with kindness that you feel like it feels like they're speaking about somebody else.
Yeah,
It's funny, like
yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah. So I do I hear it, and then yeah, at the same time it's almost too good to be true, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a warm spot for a lot of the stuff that I grew up watching. I could still get a bit of a tear in my eye when I think of watching episodes of Sesame Street. Like I don't know if you remember this, the episode where Big Bird finally comes to the realization that Mr. Hooper has died, or these big moments in kids TV where
Yeah.
kids TV shows are left to explain what's happened, some kind of crazy thing that happened in the world, or whatever. And you think of, wow, that was such a big moment that I was able to digest as a kid, or whatever. Like just all those things that you watch as a kid that really hit you and stick with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
you've got a fan base that has that experience with you.
oh yeah, believe me, there are so many times that I have to hold back tears. It makes me emotional now.
Yeah.
Like for what people have said to me, it's amazing. Like sometimes it's on social media now, and I sometimes I'll read them to my husband, and I'll be totally emotional about it because I just can't believe that I'd have such a big impact on some kids' lives, right? And then, and there's also people who reach out to me and they send me a private message, and they tell me about some of the hard times they went through as a child, and can't even tell you how that makes me feel when they'll say, but you were there for moments and gave me joy. And it's it's got so many layers, this job.
Yeah, for sure.
Not a job. It's like, it doesn't feel like a job. That's the whole thing. It's my passion, right? It's like when you love something so much and then you feel that you have impact. It's the best feeling. And, we used to do meet and greets when I was on TVO Kids, and sometimes a parent would come up to me with their child and they would say, and this is so many times this has happened, where they say that when we just moved to Canada, we were all learning to speak English with you. You had such a huge, you were a huge part of our lives, and they give you all of this. I mean, the biggest compliments, right? That you were a part of their family. You've helped them to welcome them to Canada, and help them to learn to speak English. I mean, there are moments like those when somebody's telling you that I mean, sometimes I couldn't speak, right? Because I just took it all in, and I just also beautiful.
That's a great way to end this chat. You got to share your experiences with the world, and kids grew up knowing who you are, and watching the stories that you presented, and getting some education from it as well, and that the families and kids got a lot from that experience, and now you get to keep doing that more so on your own terms, more even putting more of your genuine self into it, because at the end of the day, there's less of a filter, right? It's just like whatever you come up with can go to air if you feel that it's good quality, a good quality presentation.
That's right.
So you get to continue to do that, and the monetization, whatever, that's going to happen because you've got a built-in audience and people will find you. And as long as you keep doing what you do and putting your heart out there, people need that more than ever, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. I like the way you put it. Yeah.
Continued success with the show, with the YouTube channel, the Gisele Mishmash. And it was so good talking to you and reconnecting too, because for a long time we hadn't seen each other around. We were on different paths, and you weren't on social media that much in the day. So we hadn't seen each other until actually we ran into each other at the ACTRA Awards with our friend Joe And we kind of reconnected, and we've been chatting a lot more since then. So it's been great.
Well, hopefully I'll see you again when you come down to Toronto on one of your trips, right?
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to being back in the spring, where we'll be living there for the summer if things continue and we can kind of get back to sort of what we were at before. But we'll see. This is all a journey too, and you got to kind of roll with the punches. But you and I are doing the show because we decided that we were going to. There was a captive audience because of this, right? So, it is what it is. These things happen for a reason.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Gisele. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you.
Bye.
Okay, good chatting. Bye.
There you have it, my conversation with the very lovely and talented Gisele Corinthios. A big thank you to Gisele for sharing her cool story. Also, thanks again to my friend, Mr. Jerry Stamp, who wrote and performed the Cool Story theme song and all other jingles and stings that appear on the show. Do yourselves a favor and look for Jerry's music wherever you stream. And finally, thank you for listening. Until next time, pura vida.
Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?